Well, Pete asked me about MTN, and he believed that the cutting of data prices, now Vodacom came forward and they said, listen, they cutting some data prices, that things will maybe also affect MTN. Well, Pete, look what we're seeing here, exactly that. It just tells you this is a weekly line chart again, Pete. Let's have a look here. If you look at this chart, what do we see? We see a chart that's almost having a new low. There you are, Pete. And can you believe it? This previous low was middle 2018. That was around 67.87. Look what we're seeing here. MTN is sitting at exactly the same level, let's say, as it was in 2006. But what do we see here? And this makes me nervous when I'm showing that, because I can remember clearly many years ago I showed Sasol's share price and I said I hope that I'm wrong. And what happened? The head and shoulder played out to the T. Look at it. There's the left shoulder, there's the massive head, and we're now on the right shoulder. Now, if this plays out, MTN will probably go down to 20 Rand. That's the conservative target. And if it plays out, it actually tells you that MTN will be wiped off the market. I hope that's not the case. But what I say to people, if you believe this formation, and if you look at this chart, you say to yourself immediately, let's just take this line out because there's a warning formation. And what do we do next? We are in exactly the same position as the PPC and the Sasol chart. And in actual fact, I spoke to a friend of mine, a well-known fund manager, and he mentioned something to me today that actually rang a bell to me. And he said, Frans, can you remember all previous bear markets? There was just one specific thing that kept companies remaining on the market or stay on the market. And that was companies with good balance sheets, where they've got a good business model, and that they've got almost a niche in that market. Now, if that's true, and if I look at this chart where you've got a high, a lower high, a lower high, a lower high, a new brand new low, and I do not know the fundamentals of MTN, I just say to myself, this is a falling knife again. And remember, MTN is very dependent on Nigeria, and Nigeria is an oil producer. And while oil is under pressure, that companies there, those companies there that produces oil, will be under huge pressure just to stay alive. And this is exactly the case. Pete, I will just sit on my hands, and what will I do? Only when the share starts to go above this previous low, and there you are, only when it can get above 67, 63, only then I will say to myself, I can maybe look at the share. It doesn't say that I must buy it, but I will only look at it because the momentum, look at it, is clearly to the downside. And that makes me a little bit nervous around the share. In actual fact, if you just use this little line, what do we see there? We see a little bit of a skew head and shoulder. There's the left shoulder, there's the head, there's the right shoulder, and it can maybe go a little bit lower. So I'm a little bit nervous just to say, catch another falling knife. Kobus is looking at Steinhoff stocks. And he's also saying, Frans, but this is a proper South African company, and maybe things can turn around because the government said that they're going to spend big on infrastructure. Now, Pete, let's just have a look at the stock. Now, there's something different here, and I don't want to go back. Can you believe it? Just have a look here. I mean, Steinhoff stock was a company that was worth 13 Rand in 2011. Now it's worth 25 cents. What is the difference between this chart and the other charts? At least with this chart, we're seeing a consolidation starting to develop. On the other charts, you were just seeing all these lower lows. And this I like, Pete. I say to myself, if I can look at this, there's the clue. You can say, I said, let's wait for the consolidation. Let's do that line. Let's Draw it in there. And there you are. The first sign, let's say on a weekly chart, will probably be visible above 76 cents. But there's an earlier clue. If you look at it, and what I like about this, and this is what we're going to see, when these stocks, all these stocks that's been hammered to pieces for weeks and months, if it turns around out of a consolidation, the stop loss is always nice and tight. Now let's have a look here. There's your first signal. I gave you the top one at 76. But look at this one. This one is a classic. First of all, this acted as a support. Then this line turned into a resistance. And what do we see now? If you zoom it out a little bit, you see the classic cup formation. There's the bottom. Look at the handle there, cup and handle. And if it can break above this line, 31 cents, Pete, you can maybe see your first sign of technical strength out of a massive sell-off. And I would say if you compare this chart to the other charts, at least this one is showing a little bit of oomph, and the others are just falling to pieces. So yes, Pete, I will look at it above 31 cents, make use of a stop loss of 6 cents, and if you want a tighter one, 19 cents. I mean, if this stock starts to go, it can go to 44 cents, it can go to 79 cents, and even as high as R1.15, and then you will not even see it on the chart. It's almost like an Impala Platinum. When it started to turn around, it just rallied 25-30% within a matter of weeks, and we couldn't even see it on the chart. Let's have a look at Into Property. Susan, I'm sitting in exactly the same boat. I bought some Into Properties, luckily physical shares for the long term, because that was my idea to instead of buying a physical property overseas, I want to buy a company that holds some wonderful, beautiful assets, what they can rent out, and Frans, he can have a nice place, and I will have a good rand hedge, and the company is doing good, and the management, of course, is excellent, and nothing can go wrong. Well, Susan, it turned out to be a disaster. I bought some shares. Luckily, I stopped buying them because when I heard the word rights issue, because my idea was to accumulate them over time, I bought my first lot at about 18 Rand. And I thought, okay, I'll buy maybe next month another lot at 18 Rand, and the next month maybe at 16 or 17 Rand. And then it just started to fall, and it just fell and fell and fell. And because it was a long-term investment for me, it didn't bother me. But at R1.19, Susan, it worries me because it can go to zero. Now, the thing here is I've decided not to buy the stock anymore. I will wait for the rights issue. And the same like all the other companies, Susan, there's the line, and that's my golden line that I'm using. The trend is still to the downside, but even if this share breaks that trend at R1.96 and at R3.16, it starts to look good, I'm going to wait. And the reason why I'm going to wait is because I've seen now that the company sits on huge debt. In actual fact, they bought properties with borrowed money, and now suddenly they cannot finance themselves or pay back those big bonds that they've got. So I'm very nervous. I've decided that I'm going to sit on the stock. It's too late to sell, but it's also not too early to buy. So I'm going to sit tight. I'm going to wait for the rights issue, and maybe I will participate in it if I see it's necessary. Otherwise, I will just wait for it until there's a consolidation. If the stock goes under and I've lost the money, then I've lost it. But I will wait for the consolidation, almost like a Stefanuti stock, and only then I will start look at buying the stock or maybe add onto the position. At this point in time, Susan, just wait. It can actually go a little bit lower. Well, let's have a look at Fatima's question. Fatima said, Frans, I wanted to sell Kumba because you showed it on the show a while back, and I did not sell it. Now let's have a look here. Let's have a look at Kumba. Now this is of course a weekly chart again, and the moment I see this, I see maybe a left shoulder, and I see the head, and the left and the right shoulder has not yet formed. Here you are. I think after this massive sell-off that we had in the last couple of weeks, at least sometime we're going to see a pullback. So we'll probably see a relief rally. We will see left shoulder, and remember this is just a guess, and then you'll see the head, and maybe we'll start seeing the right shoulder developing sometime in future. Now this neckline, the possible neckline, sits at 258.13. Of course, if it breaks below that, things can go really nasty for the stock, because then you've got a low, and a brand new low gives you a lower low. So that will be negative. Let's hope for you, Fatima. It can bounce off this stock from 256 Rand. It can bounce off this neckline and maybe go back to about 435. Because if we've got maybe just a second here, I just want to show you why I'm a little bit positive here. And in actual fact, there's quite a few stocks that's showing the same scenario, and that's why I think we maybe have a little bit of an opportunity here, that the companies can give us a little bit of a opportunity here. I just want to show you here. There you are. Look at the stochastic. The stochastic just tells you that the stock has been hammered to pieces. It's oversold, and it will probably give us a little bit of a bounce. So if you do buy it on this neckline, 257.96. Make use of a stop loss. I'm going to give you this stop loss. There's another one. The one is at 239.32. That's about 14 Rand from here. It's a little bit lower, but I think that is too big, 224.37. But if it turns around and it uses this right shoulder and it starts to almost run out of steam here at around 400 Rand, I will say to myself, it's time to lock in my profit and go. Because at that point in time, you'll probably see that the stochastic is quite toppish, and that will give me a warning signal to say I must sell. Well, let's hope for the best, Fatima, and we hope it doesn't fall through. And please visit our website, www.fransdeklerk.com, for our services. And thank you for watching the show. It is just a pleasure serving you.